Now there's fallout happening everywhere, literally. Russell Wilson's responding. Sean Payton's responding. Feels like the Denver Broncos organization is responding. We're getting quotes from everybody. But first, let's listen or look at Russell Wilson's likes, shall we? Okay. Because his likes tell us that Team 3 and Russell Wilson not exactly happy with the decision that he got benched, and also letting people know and remind folks all over the internet, Russ playing good football right now.
Oh, yeah?
Very.
So just a little heads up, Russ playing good football. So this is on his profile. These are his likes, people going to bat for him, talking about how great of a year he is having. Just a nice little reminder to the world that although I'm getting benched, let's not forget Russell Wilson, still Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Sean Payton got a chance to speak about the benching of Russell Wilson, and here is how he responded. And I'm fascinated to hear Chuck Pagano's take on his answer, because I feel like this was something that was talked about when Sean Payton was interviewing for the job with the owner and GM, had to have been, with how massive this dead cap money is.
I get that, and yet I can't replace the entire offensive line. I can't bring in 5 new receivers, and if it continues over a period of time, then there'll be another guy here talking to you as well. This is something that, these are difficult decisions, and obviously there's more attention when it's the quarterback who's under contract, but different than maybe earlier decisions we've made with maybe last year's prior starters. I can just assure you one thing, and honestly, and I've said this to Greg and George a number of times, I'm just interested in winning. And it doesn't matter how. When you do this, for this long a period of time, that's all you're interested in, because there's nothing like it. And then the other side of it, there's nothing like that either. So
Losing sucks.
Yes.
Especially the Patriots.
that's kind of what it is.
So whenever he gives that answer and he says last year's previous starters, feel like the conversation was, I'm going to get my guys in here. Does that include Russell Wilson, who's under a massive contract? That had to be agreed to before he went there, right? This whole thing had to be talked about, do you think, or no?
Absolutely. At least the possibility of it. If things didn't go the way they were supposed to go, he is playing better. Mm-hmm. But what if you're like the offensive lineman? He just talked about, you can't replace Fowler.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
so
then
he thought it.
five wide receivers. I thought Sutton's a pretty good player. Jerry Judy's a pretty good player. There's some decent, but if I'm one of those guys, I'm thinking, okay, they just knocked this guy out of the building, right?
Yeah, I watched.
They owe a shit ton of money to.
A lot of money, unprecedented amount of money in dead cap and guarantees. Potentially, there was a conversation in October that they wanted him to waive his injury guarantee for 2024, 2025, which was another $37 million guaranteed if he was to suffer a catastrophic injury. When he didn't budge on that, they decided, all right, they're not going to move on with this guy anymore, but he was continuing to be the starter and play great football, and they rattled off a bunch of wins. It's getting messy over there currently, but I feel like Sean Payton has had the freedom to make any decision on how he sees fit. And this isn't about just this year. And I think next year they're even going to be like, yeah, we might not be great next year. But long term, I think the Waltons and the Walmart family believe that Sean Payton can build them a winner, and they just got to go through this. Not fun. Russ will end up somewhere. Yesterday we heard from Schultz Report of Bleacher Report.
Wow.
Little latte, Jordan Schultz. He had a little tea about what was going on behind the scenes at the Denver Broncos, and he broke it on Instagram.
Ooh.
Sources to Bleacher Report. Now, that is Schultz saying to him.
Right. Yeah.
So he's doing the whole, because he got signed. Hey, we seen this guy when he was just
Sweet boy. Cutting his teeth.
just walking through the streets of New York, going into one of his family's penthouses.
Yep.
When he was down in Mexico, going in one of their villas. Of course. When he was in the mountains at one of his log cabins.
Right.
Yacht.
And Schultz could easily be taking any other job than insider for the NFL that he wanted. He could have his feet up on a desk at Starbucks Corpo for the rest of his life, making an absurd amount of money to do very little work. Okay, very little work. Just what I have to do is thank his dad, obviously, the whole thing. Instead, he said, you know what I want to do? I want to get in the waters where everybody's pissed off at everybody, deliver bad news. I want drama, and he's in it. So we are very proud of Schultz making the decision he's making. And also now he's starting to become a little bit of a...
Oh, yeah.
He's in it.
A couple of years ago, whenever we were first introduced to Schultz, he was batting 350.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe 330. You know what I mean? Baseball, that'll make you into the Hall of Fame. But if you're in the NFL news breaking world, it's like every time he breaks something, you got to think to yourself, is that real? Is that not real? Because trying to be legit, but I think he was getting duped early. Now it feels like he has properly placed sources.
Yep. Starting to become a power player.
Congrats to Schultz. Yesterday, he basically broke the news that after an October 29 upset win over the Kansas City Chiefs, the Denver Broncos told Russell Wilson he'd be inactive the rest of the season if he did not adjust his contract and defer the injury guarantee trigger date that he has for 2025. Wilson has $37 million in injury guarantees for 2025 that will become guaranteed no matter what on the 5th day of 2024 league year in March. So if he's not able to pass a physical on that particular day, that money becomes guaranteed. If he's on the roster on that particular day, that money becomes guaranteed. So they basically told him that if he didn't waive the injury thing, so if he does get injured here in these last few weeks, let's say something happens to a knee, and he's not able to pass a physical in March, all of a sudden the Broncos will be on the hook for another $37 million on top of the 100 and whatever million they're already paying him for a couple years worth of work that nobody is going to write a book about the success of. So this news seems like a little bit of drama. Why would Russell Wilson ever agree to that? And then how was the relationship immediately upon then with Russell Wilson basically understanding that he was probably going to get let go by the Denver Broncos after this season ended? How would you handle that as a coach? How do you think that went with Russell Wilson? That's an uncomfortable situation all around. And I don't know how. I don't know how that stayed quiet.
You want me to have this conversation? Like they're going to come to you and say, "We need to have this conversation." What do you mean we need to have this conversation? I don't want to have this conversation with this kid.
Yeah.
Why would you do this to? I mean.
That's a tough convo. If this is the truth, and Diana Rossini kind of The Athletic came out afterwards and said, like, yeah, what you're hearing is true. Words around the league were saying this because I would assume Russell Wilson's team, Team 3, which there's a lot of people have friends in other places, and they're like, listen to what they're just trying to ask Russell to do. They're trying to get him to waive a guarantee. It's like that is starting quarterback.
Yes. If they're done, right? If that ship has sailed, the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore, then you move on. And whatever you're going to have to pay, you're going to have to pay. And if, you're not going to go to a guy and ask him that. I find that hard. I would never go to a guy and say, you need to remove this, otherwise we're going to do this.
That's bad business.
How about your locker room? How about the rest of the guys? How about free agents? How about free agents that are coming? Hey, you want to come play? Was this true? Yeah. What you did to... Russell Wilson.
This is insider Schultz and Rossini. We're not 100%. I'm sure the Denver Broncos have their side of the story.
Right, but can you imagine Sean Payton and staff trying to convince guys to come in there when you got this stuff? Did this really happen? Just the idea that something like, because we know it's a rough business and it can become dirty. Like this is dirty. This is bad.
Yeah, it's not good to be known for either, especially with somebody who's as public as Russell Wilson.
If it's true,
that is a tough move. But you heard the way Sean Payton answered that one question about like moving forward, and he said, previous year's starters. So what he said a lot in that full thing.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, but all he cares about. But whenever he described Russell Wilson in other moves that were made that weren't quarterbacks as previous year starters, it's like, oh, he wants this to be like his team, like how I build this team, which takes me back to thinking like when Sean Payton interviewed for these jobs, he certainly brought up the potential of moving on from Russell Wilson if it doesn't work after 1 year, especially with how Russ looked last year in Nathaniel Hackett's offense, which has 10 touchdowns on the season.
That's right.
Joe Flacco also has 10 touchdowns in like 3 weeks. So it's like, I think this was something that was maybe cooking for a while. And Sean Payton was almost, I don't know what week it was this year, but at some point he was like, yeah, I'm moving on from this guy.
Yeah.
And then he's still their starter, though, at that time. Because you hear Darius Butler the other day, he's like, they're running this basic offense. Like, he's treating him like he's a rookie, undrafted quarterback pretty much. On first down, they're doing this. On second down, they're doing this. There's really no creativity. It's like, at what point did Sean Payton be like, I don't want to do.
He's the ultimate game manager right now.
Russ?
Yeah, for what they're asking.
Having good numbers, though, they're saying.
Don't go outside of this plan. This is what we're doing. And it's not been bad. I mean, that's their formula for winning right now, I guess. But
if they don't go on that winning streak, this probably happens a lot earlier.
But but they're 1-5. They started 1-5, and then after they beat the Chiefs, I think they were 2-5 or 3-5. It's not as if they were terrible, and that was the first win on the way back. But of course, the team seeing like the new linemen and new wide receivers, they probably have something to say. But if you're another quarterback in the NFL and you see a guy who has 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions and his coach isn't happy with him, how are you thinking as far as considering that a place to sign? Or are they just going directly to draft? So then it's, hey, I'm going to mold this kid.
Well, Sean Payton could just say, I never wanted this guy.
That's what I'm saying. He'll say to everybody.
No,
when other players are coming in for free agency. And
I didn't do this deal.
Yeah, Sean Payton's like, you're my guy.
This
he was not my guy.
I inherited.
And I'm excited to hear, just like whenever the Seattle exit happened, like the anonymous.
Right.
The anonymous.
Boy, that was messy.
I'll be excited to hear what Denver's anonymous are saying, because remember, it wasn't too long ago when the conversation was he has his own office upstairs.
No
he has his own
birthday.
parking spot. He does his own thing. It's like there's going to be people probably anonymously coming out from Denver saying, this guy, he was doing John Elway. Okay, John Elway is a president and won Super Bowl Hall of Fame. This guy's asking for, like, I'm assuming that's the next step of this entire thing, especially with the likes on the Twitter account.
But like you said, like the timing still seems weird because they ripped off that winning streak and they were back in playoff contention. So you have to almost think that Peyton was like, hey, we can't make the playoffs this year because if we do, then I probably will be stuck with this guy. So for them to kind of get back in the playoff picture and then get beat on Christmas Eve in the Holiday Classic and be like, okay, this is kind of the room now we can cut bait, like that just seems kind of fishy. Like it doesn't really make sense.
I like
Yeah,
fish, especially this time of year.
The undressing
On the sideline.
on the sideline
wanted
after
to-
an offsides
was
penalty
awesome.
that they called an offense on a touchdown.
Feels like there's been a lot brewing. What does Sean Payton tells us whenever you watch his film? He like lights a candle. It's like he's an all-nighter type guy.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Him just walking around that office going, I hate this guy. I can't with this guy. He's going to come here tomorrow, ask for some ridiculous thing. And he's going, we got to pay him. He can't even make.
Tell us,
can't do.
God got us. So that's not how it works for us.
Sean, I don't know if you saw my movie. Okay. I was fired. I was coaching high school football.
Yeah.
Kevin James.
James.
Wait, is that a good?
Yeah.
Do I need to
I
watch
love
that?
it,
It's a documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean Payton, pretty good thespian as well. He was mopping Kevin James's office at the end of it.
Yep.
Grew his hair
Sean
out for
Payton, a
it.
character, dude. Like, if we think back to the success that he's had in the NFL, you start looking at his win losses. It's comparable to everybody else that we talk about being great coaches. And then he's out of the game and he crushes it on TV. Then he comes back in the game, he's kind of handed all this, everything. So now if they get worse after this entire thing, that's his entire legacy. And Sean Payton's a great football mind. Russell Wilson, great football player. Excited to see where they end up next.